Come stop and take a trip down on my block, where you see hidden potential, young minds sharper than Ginsu, and ain't afraid to speak their mind if they got something against you. We standing with you, we tackle issues like civic pride. Hate will cease to exist, let's put our differences aside. From my side to your side, from Dutchtown to South Side, from Penrose to North Side, from Benton Park to Old North, the West End to West Side. We blessed when we step out, we stand down, rise up, stand together, wise up.
This is StitchCast Studio, produced by St. Louis Story Stitchers in St. Louis, Missouri.
In this week's episode, our StitchCast sits down with John Wright Jr. and John Wright Sr. for a conversation about Black history in St. Louis in this live edition of StitchCast Studio.
They say who that, but you already knew that. That be them story stitches, story stitches, story stitches, story stitches, story stitches.
Hello, everybody under the sound of my voice. I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of StitchCast Studio. I'm your host, Brandon Lewis, accompanied by a few members of our StitchCast. And we actually got two guests this time, two very, 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 very special guests that have been a part of Story Stitches for a really long time. We not only have John A. Wright Sr., who y'all heard from recently, but we also have John A. Wright Jr. Can y'all make some noise for them real quick? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. So, being that both of you are historians, you've written several books on history in St. Louis. We want to talk a little bit about St. Louis history. And we kind of want to, of course, we'll get into some facts, but we want to talk about it kind of from your perspective. For each of you, in your own opinion, what is St. Louis known for?
Oh, it's known for blues, it's known for crime, it's known for poor housing, it's known for good housing, it's known for artists, it's known for education. It all depends on what period of time you think about. It's a variety of things. I've been here all my life, and it's home. And I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I can talk about all those.
Heard that.
Depending on your age, I think depends on how you'll see St. Louis and what it's known for. You know, having been at Mizzou, a number of people knew St. Louis for beer. Having been a U City grad, a number of people know St. Louis for Nelly. Depending on who you are and what your interests are will depend on what you think St. Louis is known for. People talk about Kansas City barbecue, but there's the St. Louis style ribs for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Okay, and this is a question for everybody. I'm curious because each of us vary in age, some of us slightly. So what was St. Louis like for everyone growing up? One at a time, but I'd like to hear from everybody. I don't care who starts.
It all depends on how far back you go.
So what was it like for you? What did you see growing up?
Well, you know, if you go way back, you got on a streetcar, they didn't have any heat. So the conductor had a stove next to him and put kindling on it. If you lived in a two-family flat, two-room tenant, you took a bath in a tin tub. You know, people don't even think about that anymore.
How did you empty a tin tub?
Carefully.
So we got like carry it over to something, or like
you took it a little at a time and put it in the sink. Because you didn't have a bathtub to pour it in, and you were next to another apartment. But the thing that it was just me and my mother in the two rooms, but down the hall, not down the hall, but down the way, you may have 5 kids and a mother and father, and they all took a bath in the tin tub. And it's something they tell me when they had a lot of them just scrape the grease off and pour it out and put some more water in it. And so it all depends on how many in the family and what floor you're on.
Wow.
And so it's different, you know, it's thing, you know. It's
wow.
By being a segregated St. Louis, most of your activities confined to a certain area. Like I grew up in the area around Homer G. Phillips, and so my boundary was Martin Luther King, St. Louis Avenue, Taylor Avenue, and Sarah Avenue. And so everything you did mostly was in that square. If you went downtown by a certain time, you came back on a certain time. Your eating habits, even when I got older, I got so used to getting home and not spending a lot of money eating downtown, even when it opened up, because my habit was saying, it's time for you to get home. I can get you something to eat. And so it was hard for me. When I started dating, it was hard for me. I'm ready to take the girl back down over to the Ville, you know, get something to eat. We're down here. Why can't we eat down here? You know? So you build your life around things. You know, you had the shows were segregated, and you had your good first class. None of the movies were first class. you got them last. But we had movies where you bought your ticket after church and came back because of the comic theater on Sarah and Finney. Then you had the cheap shows where you paid a dime. The Circle Theater, you paid a dime, and you got a chance to win a bag of groceries to take home.
Oh, wow.
You saw 2 movies, a chapter play, a newsreel, and a cartoon for a dime.
Wow. Wow. A ticket in the movie theater is $15 now.
No, it may be a dime, but at the cheap show, 35 cents. You've been spurging when you've been 35 cents.
Goodness. Goodness. What about you? What was it like for you growing up?
Well, it was very, very different than his experience. But for the most part, I grew up in U City. And, you know, I tell my students, one of the things that I noticed about working in an elementary school that was very different from when I was their age is that I walked to school. I mean, it wasn't a big deal for me to walk. My mother started us walking when I walked with her for the first half of the year in kindergarten, and then after that, you know, you caught your friends, and then at 6 years old, you know, we're walking to school. And along the way, there were a couple of stores, and we were given money. Not a lot of money, but for a quarter, you know, you could get a donut and a Coke or some Now and Laters or some Chico sticks. But because of that experience, you learned how to handle money. You learned how to count money. Oh, there are no little stores for kids to have that experience anymore. And they're not used to being able to have those exchanges. So I'm trying to figure out, why is it that we have children who don't really understand today money the way I understood it when I was their age. I knew 2 phone numbers when I went to school and 2 addresses, and I still know them. I still know my grandmother's phone number, even though she's been gone for over 30 years now. I learned it as a kid, and kids don't, because parents have cell phones and they don't keep those numbers. It's very different. I grew up in a community where there's a movie theater, and then I went on to work in that movie theater, the Varsity, which is now Vintage Vinyl. There was a candy store called Cantique that was around the corner from there. There was a Dairy Queen in the Loop, all those things that were there for me that I really enjoyed growing up as a part of that experience. Everybody I knew was in the Corey League or the U City Rec, those kind of things. We enjoyed that. I also knew that people, when they had a difference of opinion, there was a fight, but no one got shot. No one got whatever else. You know, we managed to settle our differences.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? You know what time it is. Time for another StitchCast Studio Arts Interlude. That's right, it's time to pick the city up. This week, we have a Story Stitchers original song entitled Gunshots.
Every day is surviving, I'm a walking testimony. Don't listen to that silly rapper, cause he's just a phony. He rap about guns, but he don't know that life. A contradiction, his reality don't coincide. I know what's happening, imagine me on day level. It's unfathomable, too conscious, I can't settle or wrap my head around it. Why people be so evil? Carrying dirty guns, concealing them is illegal. And even worse, you're turning them on your own kind. Killing each other, which brother gon' end up in that pine? Wood box, no socks, 6 feet, the other gon' get time. Jammed up with heat, a baby girl died, I cried, can't bring her back. These bullets ain't got no names, God ain't blessing no traps. These blasphemous buffoons adding fuel to the flames. Bragging on they shooters, all they do is bring us pain. When we hang out, gunshots, stay inside, gunshots, non-stop, gunshots, daylight there, gunshots, nighttime on gunshots, around the clock the gun drop. Wave your hands high if you tired of hearing gunshots. Hang out, gunshots, stay inside, gunshots, non-stop, gunshots, daylight there, gunshots, nighttime on gunshots, around the clock the gun drop. Wave your hands high if you tired of hearing gunshots. This is a movement, pretense to revolution. The Renaissance is changing so we can stop losing somebody every day. The senseless acts of violence. Be on your merry way, can't fix the problem with silence. People, let's talk about it. Don't just be a bystander. Need to develop a system that can provide answers to this contemporary crisis. Ain't speaking ISIS, domestic terrorism, leaving neighborhoods lifeless. Right in America, the war is in our backyard. Traveled for years and we still ain't made it that far to where we can say that it's okay. People civilized. Does anybody care if the future live or dies? And I'd advise to the wise, better listen to the young before they mess up and do something dumb. Cause these guns, these lack of funds, no resources support this. It's no longer safe on front porches, can't hang out. Gunshots, stay inside. Gunshots, non-stop. Gunshots, daylight there. Gunshots, nighttime more. Gunshots, around the clock the gun drop. Wave your hands high if you tired of hearing gunshots. Hang out. Gunshots, stay inside. Gunshots, non-stop. Gunshots, daylight there. Gunshots, nighttime more. Gunshots, around the clock the gun drop. Wave your hands high if you tired of hearing gunshots. Secure your legal weapon, tell others to do the same. Don't carry nothing if it ain't registered in your name. Record the make, model, serial number information, so if it come a missing, you can find the location. Call 911 whenever you hear some gunshots. Call the police if you witness a crime on your block. If an organization improves life for the youth, donate or volunteer your time. Give them a boost, help a struggling parent whose burdens weigh a ton. Become a mentor, earn and learn, hire the young. They say I am the one, I guess I'm on the list. Clean up my neighborhood, participate in ownership. Make it a motto, gotta look out for each other. If we get to know our neighbors, we can fix it like sisters and brothers. I can't trust you, then how can we ever begin to build peace? I keep losing my friends when they hang out. Gunshots, stay inside. Gunshots, non-stop. Gunshots, daylight there. Gunshots, nighttime more. Gunshots, around the clock the gun drop. Wave your hands high if you tired of hearing gunshots. Hang out. Gunshots, stay inside. Gunshots, non-stop. Gunshots, daylight there. Gunshots, nighttime more. Gunshots, around the clock the gun drop. Wave your hands high if you tired of hearing gunshots.
I think I noticed things began to sort of change once I was in college, because as we were trying to find our way and becoming of age to where we could go to things, it seemed like a number of high school kids were trying to follow us there, but they didn't have necessarily the maturity. So we would go to like Maryland Plaza and hang out. And then but the kids came and they started changing the rules and running people off. We would go to the riverfront and Laclede's Landing. There used to be a club called the Brass Rail that was there, a band called the Vision Band, which evolved into a band called The Crash, which it's had a little exposure on BT and whatever else, and they were doing really well. They were open for Colory Bad and some other, they were on their way, and then they had a falling out. But the band leader who ran it then is now running Dirty Mugs. I don't know if you're familiar with that band now. And they still have a huge following, a great following here in St. Louis. But we would go to listen to them. As I said, that there were things. I remember Fair St. Louis became Fair St. Louis because of protests about the Veil Prophet Parade and all that was tied into that. And with those changes, the changes, as I said, where we had a lot of young people who weren't ready for it, didn't know how to handle themselves in public, and were into a great deal of mischief. I find to this day that we still do not have an adequate place for large numbers of young people to gather and to express themselves safely. That's why I like Story Stitches. Story Stitches is an outlet for the things that are missing, that were missing then and that are missing today. Because a number of people find themselves getting into a great deal of mischief because there's no organized outlet for them to safely express themselves.
Thing that we moved out where he grew up. But when I lived in the city, when I first moved out of the Ville, the only place we could gather was the Salvation Army. Everything else was segregated. Wow. And they had a camp, and we had all activities around the Salvation Army.
Wow.
You couldn't go to the swimming pools because they were segregated. We had to go back into the Ville to go to the swimming pool. And since there's so many kids of us, you had to get in line. Because the only pool could take so many. It was an outdoor pool made out of concrete. You scratch your knees all up and get bruised all up. And then you go in and then you come out. They had a certain amount of time you could spend. The whistle blow, you had to leave. Get back in line again if you want to go back in again. But because of segregation, your opportunities were limited. You either stayed in the neighborhood. As a youngster, growing up in the Ville, we played games in the apartment complex. Hide and seek, marbles, hopscotch, all those things were things and then taking the newspapers to go and throwing them at each other, chasing each other through the complex. But you didn't do too much outside that world. That was we could walk down. Most of us didn't have car fare, so we walked down the Pine Street to the YMCA. The fellas did, and then we walked back home.
So this brings up an interesting question. Because St. Louis was so segregated, do you think that actually contributed to the Ville thriving in the way it did? Yeah. I remember you talking about how the Ville had almost everything you could need: a hospital, schools, stores, barbershops, a church. There was everything you need in this one neighborhood. Is that because there was segregation and everything kind of had to be in this one spot?
No, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. The poor stayed with the wealthy, the better off. It wasn't unusual for a doctor to stay next to a janitor. It wasn't unusual for a custodian to be head of an usher board with a doctor or the teacher. So you had a mixture. It was a special place and time. I would say you had bright students and slow students, but you were all in the same class. You didn't have people escaping. So you had a variety of doctor's sons, lawyer's sons, all in the same class with the janitor's son. So it was a good place. And you had, because of segregation, you had a lot of businesses that serviced those communities. So money stayed in the community several times before it disappeared. Right now, the money goes out and spent outside the community. None of that comes back. But that time, the people lived there, stayed there, spent their money there. And so it was a good time. That was good. And you could possibly, depending on where you want to go, you could go from grade school all the way through your professional career and never get on a bus. If you wanted to go to law school, that was there. If you wanted to go to beauty school, that was there. If you wanted to go to nursing school, that was there. So you could do that without getting on the bus. You could walk to those places.
Wow. I know y'all ain't experienced that growing up. What was St. Louis like for y'all growing up?
Okay. Well, I pretty much grew up like North County, North City, South Side, but mainly in the county, I want to say. When I was younger, it was pretty much just me outside with my friends. As I got older, just wanted to stay inside more. If I did want to go out with my friends, it was more like we'd have to drive at least 30, 40 minutes to go to the next fun thing. Where there was like, I don't know, Six Flags or some type of like main event type place. But that's pretty much what it is now, like just driving far for the things that I really want to do. And kind of like what he said about the money not being back into the communities, going out to all these other different places where
I would say for me, it's been weird to like see like a shift as I got older, because like we went from like we gotta pop up at your house to see if you're coming outside or something. The candy lady, that's the first entrepreneur I ever seen. Go there, cheap stuff, get your little quick candy. We all outside playing and stuff, but now I don't like, especially like in my neighborhood, it ain't that many kids around no more. Like nobody's going to the rec center, be at the park. It's there's like been a shift since I got older, like 20 now. Like everything just like different.
I feel that. So I'm like in that like I feel like a middle kid. Like I grew up with social media, but I was still around when Facebook was just taking off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. It's a weird thing. I feel like I'm 25. And so I'm in this in-between state or whatnot where like kids look at me as old. But the people older than me look at me as young. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I'm in this in between thing. I remember slide phones and flip phones. I remember when the QWERTY keyboard was a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, bro. You feel me? Like all phones didn't always used to be, touchscreen.
Flip.
Like I remember when flip phones added like this walkie-talkie feature, and that was a big deal. You know what I'm saying? That was a big deal. But also, I've been around and submersed enough in the thing that submersed the generation coming behind me to have been submersed in those things like social media or the way phones are now, or Uber and all of that. You know what I'm saying? Just things that might blow your mind if you was around in 1902. And so, yeah, I consider myself as kind of in the middle. It seems like things are not forcibly segregated anymore, but segregated in other ways for other reasons. Not to say that you can't walk into whatever restaurant you want to, but that your lifestyle might not allow you to be, or the way you look might not allow you to be welcome in said restaurant.
You think it's changed a lot for you. What do you think about me? We didn't even have if you had a telephone, you may share that line with 3 other families growing up.
Yeah.
Think you don't have your own line? People can listen to,
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah, party line. A horse and buggy not a horse and wagon, up and down the alley, collecting rags. Guy across the alley with a blacksmith shop, shoeing horses. Oh, yeah. See,
I didn't experience that.
See, I
missed that one.
You missed that one. You may have had TV. Around midnight, they started playing the Star Spangled Banner and went off.
I heard about that.
Yeah, so you can look at more channels. We only had about a couple of channels. The first guy on the block had a screen about 12 inches. Everybody sitting around looking like this around the TV. So you got so many channels to look at. The menus and choices of restaurants. And it's going to change for people buying you.
Yeah.
It's a different world, The first time I made a call abroad, I was in India. You had to make an appointment to make the call. Then you could hear him say, okay, here, boom, here. You hear him make the connections. And then it go off, and then they make it try again. Now you just pick up the phone and put the numbers in.
Yes.
So, it's, like I said, it's changed a lot for you. Think about me.
Right.
It's changed a whole lot for me. It's going to change again. People come behind you. It's the way things, it just, technology is fast. It's smooth. It just goes and doubles itself.
Yeah, it do. That touchscreen flip phone, though, I'm not really with that.
You don't like it?
They moving backwards, bro. It's silly.
It is kind of like moving backwards.
It's kind of fun.
They're just trying to, make it more
got one?
compact.
No, I ain't got one.
You want one?
I don't want one.
then it must not be all that good. So why, as historians, why is it important to preserve history, and why did the two of you decide to be historians?
Well, I think if you don't know where you've been, it's hard to tell where you're going to go.
Right.
And I was out in Kinloch not too long ago. The Manor-Risa was the first retreat center for African Americans in the world. Out there. It's all grown up with weeds. No one knows about it. No one cares about it. That's going to be a lost piece of history. Yes. St. Louis used to have close to 1 million people. It's down to 325. If you go around town, you see a lot of vacant lots, a lot of historical places being torn down. Then they're tearing down places, bombing them. Places been there almost 2 centuries. And so that's history gone. And we have to know what we've been through. I was at a conference Saturday in Jeff City, and we were talking about the Germans on the coast, the Mississippi River. They cut slaves' heads off and put them on poles in the river, down the river, to discourage revolts. We need to know that, because people say, no, that stuff didn't happen. It happened. And I say it dehumanized the slaveholders, because once you dehumanize people, you can do anything. You won't think you can do anything with them, but you lose your humanity. And so it's good to keep those things focused so people don't lose their humanity. And we have to make sure that they keep that in mind. When you act up and hate somebody and act up to disrespect them, you're dehumanizing yourself at the same time. The woman who is when the schools integrated the South, see what the groups spit on kids and everything. Now those pictures all over the news and newsprint. She felt embarrassed now because her kids see her really taunting those youngsters trying to get into school. And so we have to always remind people, you're making history as you do these things. Would you want your mama to be someone to burn somebody alive and come get souvenir skiing? Would that, you want your mama to have that in her jewelry box? So we have to always talk about the results of our action. I was with a priest not too long ago. He was for against abortion. I said, now you and I can get together on feeding him, clothing, housing him. You like I shot him. You know, he didn't believe in life, only a certain part of life. So you got to always confront those who say one thing, test their belief to make sure they really are committed to that belief. They believe in life, you believe in it all the way. Not just for the show or not for the vote. But you got to always push that and make sure people are ready to be committed to what they say.
Agreed. Yes, agreed. How about you?
I think it's important. You're not preserving anything unless you know it's important. If you don't know the significance of an event or an object or a place, then there'd be no reason to preserve it. You have to identify what's important, and those are the things we save, things that stand out. I think one of the things I was reflecting on about, memories of St. Louis or what stood out to me, I remember going with my wife and children to the Arch grounds to see Senator Obama speak. We had I had taken my son earlier, I guess February of 2008, to the dome then, I guess it was the TWA dome then or whatever else. And I remember my daughter being sick, my wife stayed with her. I said that, there's a very good chance that we are going, telling my son, we're watching history here. This man potentially is going to be the president of the United States. And then when we were out at the Arch, and he's speaking under the Arch, and you have 100,000 people there, and he's not yet president, but the energy, the feeling, it's just like, he might just pull this off. And we're going to help him. We're going to be there. We're going to come out for this man. There is a spot at the Lincoln Memorial. There's a square. I remember going with my children to show them. This is where Dr. King stood when he gave the I Have a Dream speech. It's very small. If you're not looking on the ground for it, you'll miss it, but it's there. With my wife and children, we can say, I couldn't even tell you what Obama was saying. But I can tell you that out of the 100,000 people that were there, we were 1 in 100,000 who was there to cheer on and introduce or be there to support the man that would become the first black president of the United States. It was, I think, one of the second largest gatherings he had during his first presidential run. And that was here in St. Louis. And I think that's an important thing to preserve. Yeah. I also preserve a memory to where he went to a Cardinals game and was booed.
What? You know what? That don't always surprise me.
And not only had the feelings, but I know it wasn't all about politics. Him being booed, I know that there were other factors that were in there too that we don't talk about. We talk about, but the media doesn't necessarily want to talk about there being another problem that hasn't been erased. There's a number of people who seem to think that because we have a black president, racism died with that, and it is still very much alive and well, and here in St. Louis.
Wow.
St. Louis Story Stitchers. StitchCast Studio Live is supported in part by an award from the National Endowment for the Arts on the web at arts.gov. Story Stitchers is supported in part by the Lewis Prize for Music's 2021 Accelerator Award. The mission of the Lewis Prize is to partner with leaders who create positive change by investing in young people through music. StitchCast Studio, St. Louis Story Stitchers, and the Center is supported by Kreisberg Arts Foundation as a resident organization. Thank you for listening.
They say who that, but you already knew that. That be them story stitches. Story stitches, story stitches, story stitches, story stitches.